Hello, my name is Miguel, and I'm with TeamJVS Media and Productions.
Hey.
How are you, Miguel?
How you doing, Mr. Mantzoukas? Hello, Ms. Porter. How are you doing today?
You can call
Good,
me
thank you.
Adina, pleasure.
But I insist that you continue to call me Mr. Mantzoukas.
Si, senor. Si, senor. So I was waiting for the two of you to meet in the show. I'm like, how's that gonna play out? And I'm only seeing the first 4 episodes. And my friends were like, I don't know what it's going. I'm like, wait for it. And then that happened, and I'm like, oh, mech suits, mental dancers, that's nothing to compare what's gonna happen. But my question is, after getting all that, was when did both of you get the first Paper Girls comic graphic novel? When did that enter your world? Was this pre the production starting, or was this right as soon as the cart was set in the wheel?
My story is shorter, so I'll be quick and let Jason go with it. I was not aware of the Paper Girls universe.
Okay.
So, and I don't dive into it a lot before an audition because I don't want to get into my head about how huge a project something is while I'm auditioning for it. So once the contract was signed, I went to I researched a famous comic book store in Los Angeles, waited in line as one does on a Saturday morning before a comic book store opens, and got my very first copy. And I tried to read as many of the comics before I went to the script, so I can kind of get the backstory.
Right on.
Yeah, and for me, I'm a old school comic book nerd. So
Yeah.
and have been a Brian K. Vaughan fan since early days. Why the Last Man, Ex Machina, like great stuff. So when Paper Girls, and I'm a huge Cliff Chang fan as well. So when they were doing a show, when they were doing a book together, I was so excited. So I got issue 1 of Paper Girls off the rack.
Nice.
Was so excited. So when this came around to be able to be in it, I couldn't believe it. It was, to me, like grandfather is like stepping into like an iconic role, because it's such an iconic role from the comics that I've been reading for years. So it was really exciting.
Awesome. I love that there's 2 perspectives. That's okay in this world, that like it's cool for people who are new to it, and yet those who started from day one, you're like, all right, this is a treat that's gonna unravel itself. I appreciate it.
It's also a universe that is like you can wrap your arms around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 700 issues. It's not been going on for 40 years. It's a piece of storytelling that you can digest.
Oh yeah. And my other question, and I've been asking this to everybody, and I think it's a cool one, where it's in the 80s, Mac has a Walkman, and my question is, do each of you personally have a song or a band or an artist from the 80s that you connect to, that you could tell people, all right, you want to know about me? Here's a taste of who I am from the 80s.
The 80s.
Huh. That is a good question. I'm trying to think.
80s.
What are my favorite? Because there are because that's my that's my youth.
Yeah.
The cassettes that I would buy. I listened to a lot of, like, in that era, alternative, what was alternative music at the time,
Right.
Husker Du and the Replacements, and, a lot of those bands of that era, all, the alt rock bands of that era. I'm trying to think. I loved the Eurythmics, very different, but like that's more top 40 stuff. But I'm trying to think of something.
Me, I'm a dancer. I like to get out and move. So when I think about mixtapes, I think about the 80s. I think about like what DJ guy I was trying to get with that made some tape that I treasured. Yeah, I also was like dating a couple of white guys then too, so it was all like Pink Floyd and like
Sure, like classic rock.
The British
yeah,
invasion.
classic
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
rock.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like "Wish You Were Here" is the sexiest song.
Oh my God.
Bam.
Yes.
That is hilarious. I love that.
Dun, dun.
Yes. Awesome. I have to admit to Adina that, and I mean this as a biggest compliment as you get, because it's one of the greatest movies of all time. When your character started interacting with people in the future and yet kept asking about where are the girls or where each one of them at, I literally looked over and I saw on my shelf my T2 DVD or Blu-ray I had. I'm like, I'm getting literally T1000 vibes. And all I needed was just the music, and you just because I remember at one point you started running towards one, and I literally I was like, I have never forgotten seeing the T2 movie for the first time as a kid, and I thought, but there's more to that. It's not just a one-way character. There has to be a dynamic between grandfather and also that side of the story or the book, if you will. So I had to tell you because I'm like, I immediately told my friends, yo, that's like Terminator 2. That's like 2000. What the heck? So I want to give you
Thank you.
that. And I think one other thing I like to ask is that my generation, I'm from 95. Every 3 years we got a superhero growing up. What the girls are right now, every 3 years we got a superhero movie. Nowadays we get one every weekend, every month, which is cool. I love Marvel and DC, but as other independent stories, comics are getting developed and adapted, I appreciate that more. That like, hey, there's more space. It's not just two-way thing. Are you seeing that, and are you excited for that to happen more or no?
I'm excited for all different kind of new stories. When I was reading the comic books, and it was for the first time, and talking about girls and getting their periods, I was thrilled about that. I mean, maybe because I'm not maybe I'm a mom. I have an 11-year-old daughter. This being discussed and not seeing something you can be ashamed of, or I was thrilled about that. And so hearing those voices, these stories, all the feelings that go around with this transition, super excited about.
Yeah, and I feel like that's exactly like these are, and I'm a fan, like I'm like I said, I'm a comic book fan from my childhood. So I really like and am so excited by all the stories we're getting now inside of Marvel or DC, but you don't get a Marvel kind of version of what we're doing in Paper Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Paper Girls is a uniquely human story set inside of this deeply sci-fi genre show, and that's not always the case inside of Marvel and DC. You're not gonna, to Adina's point, you're not gonna have a storyline that goes into a young woman having her first period in Avengers Age of Ultron. It's just not going to happen. And so, like, while those movies are a blast, and I've of course I've watched them all, like I really love that our show has a much more coming of age, much more humanist kind of storytelling going on. And that's what I think makes it compelling. That's what makes it super immersive. And then the backdrop of this big space time war, that's just a blast,
Oh yeah. I have to go. It was a pleasure meeting you both, and I wish you nothing but the best, and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Take care, Miguel.
Take care.
Falling off the top